it's almost too pretty to be inside.
Amen.
Looks like the Lord is sending us one more good warm spell here for the next 3 days, and I understand the bottom's going to fall out come Saturday morning.
Amen.
So let's enjoy it. This is the September 30th work session of the Board of Commissioners of Franklin County. And we'll start off calling this to order. And I want to ask Commissioner Strickland if he will lead us in a word of prayer, and then we'll say the pledge. Please stand.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. We thank you for everything that you've given us. Look after us, guide us, and protect us, and help us in our work session to see things in long range for this county, that we and all may be doing things best for thee and in the citizens of this county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start. This time we'll open it up for public comments. I'm sure we have some public here that would like to comment. Well, we'll move right into our agenda then. Item 1 here, we have what's known as the short-term work program that we do it every 5 years. And let's let our manager, Mr. John Phillips, explain that to us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is time to update our Franklin County Joint Comprehensive Plan. As you know, that happens every 5 years. It's changed somewhat, and that really all that we're required to do at this point is to update our short-term work program. To me, one of the biggest benefits of having items listed there is it does help us when we apply for grants, both federal and state grants. What I have for your consideration really is the work plan that was in our latest comprehensive plan update. If you will notice, we've updated some dates for most of these projects. There are 2 that I added, being the jail expansion and also a project to do improvements to our radio communication system. What I'd ask for is your consideration at our Monday regular meeting. I would ask for your approval for a plan. This plan that's before you certainly is available for modification. And then also we have the opportunity to modify the plan really anytime during the next 5 years. But I'd like for you to take a look at the projects that are listed there. If there are any additions or deletions or anything that you'd like to modify, I would certainly be glad to do that.
For the public sake, do they have a copy of the 5-year plan? If not, would you like to just briefly mention what's on it?
I'll be glad to go through the projects that are identified here if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Basically, we have the continued expansion of the countywide water system, which has been an ongoing project, as you know, for several years. The development of a wastewater treatment plant to serve the I-85 corridor. As you know, on that project, we received funding through USDA. Also included in the plan was the expansion of the planning department to include inspections and enforcement of zoning regulations. Locate and purchase property for recreation centers through the Parks and Recreation. Continuation of transportation improvement projects for roads and bridges. Promote the use of conservation development design in rural areas and encourage higher development in or around the cities. Again, that would be through our planning and land use. Continue the development of a firefighter training center, which, as you know, has begun. Construct a government office building on county property near this facility, near the Justice Center. Replace obsolete firefighting equipment. Expand and upgrade industrial parks. And again, the 2 that I'm proposing that we add would be the jail expansion and improvements to the radio communication system for the county. And again, it helps us when we apply for grants. It helps us if this board has adopted the plan and it's a part of this work program.
So, in essence, to make sure that makes it easier for us to apply for grants to achieve these objectives, we have to have this in place. And it's worthy to be noticed that we can, it's flexible, we can change.
Yes, sir, it's not any kind of binding agreement as far as the project's taking place. It's just simply a part of the comprehensive plan.
Commissioners, y'all have any thoughts? You have from now to Monday to, we can make some adjustments. Any comment?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay.
I just think that everything on there is basically going to be essential, because I know in Livonia, it seems like there's going to be new construction sometime in the future that's going to be at least 3 or 4 stories, which is going to make a difference with the fire department, which will have causes with and everything else.
So all of those are very worthy to be on that, and
Yeah.
if we come up with any more, if we have the public to think in terms of what we should maybe be looking into, please.
And basically all this right here, I know this is mostly through SPLOSH spending.
Correct.
Correct.
A lot of it was through SPLOSH, that's correct. And the possibility of getting grants, some of it's out of the general funds.
I would just say one thing is if it could be looked at or added as far as we're looking at expansion of the countywide water system. I was wondering if that might be where the city of Royston is expanding over into Bull Springs with the natural gas, that if that could be looked at as possible.
Certainly, that could be a project that could be added, definitely.
Okay.
That's a good thought. We've been talking with Royston, natural gas, and spending natural gas throughout the county. And we need to keep that alive and look at it possibility, if it's possible, to put it on SPLOSH. And I've had more senior citizens probably ask me that question, or just practically as many as the poultry producers. Of course, the poultry producers like to have it, but we have a lot of senior citizens that's on fixed income. They could reduce the heating bill in half if it's like the natural gas or propane or electric.
And one point that I will add, since you brought that up, Commissioner Stricker, is that each of the 5 municipalities also are part of this plan, so they will have their individual projects for the cities of the county.
No. I just know that actually natural gas is actually going to probably even come down further in cost with in the future.
Accessibility,
Yeah.
Accessibility.
Yeah.
the new technologies. Yeah,
Correct.
very good point.
Let's go ahead and make sure we add that to a comprehensive plan.
Yes, sir.
I think that's good. Anything else? Think in terms of. All right, moving on to the next item here is C, is the handbook. And I'm going to call on Lady Evans. We've been working on the handbook now for some time, because our old handbook, I call it the old handbook, it's been in existence for, I don't even know how long, but quite a long time. And the new one that's been put together, let me just let you talk, and then we can add to it.
Okay, we've been working on it since last year. Working on it last year. I've sent out to the Texas constitutional officers. I've had some feedback, and John and I both have worked on making sure that it was specific to our county, making sure that it, worked for our employees. And so that's where we are with it. So we've made the changes, as they were recommended.
And with the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission, we're going through them to make sure that all types of everything has been updated with it, if I'm not correct. right?
They did the initial updates, and then we took the handbook, sent it out to our department heads, constitutional officers. John and I both went through it, Deborah went through it, and we made sure that it was, what followed our policies.
Yes, we was going to address this issue last month because we thought we had it in place, but there was a few people said that they hadn't studied it close enough. So, we hopefully made sure that they had the opportunity to look at it and so forth. Any comment?
No, we're pretty good.
Okay, Commissioners, be ready to move forward with our handbook update taking place at our official Monday meeting.
What action will you be asking for at our meeting? Will you be asking for adoption, or is it still a work in progress?
As far as I'm concerned, it's ready to be adopted.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ready, I just didn't know if there were still any outstanding comments that needed to be addressed.
Yes, I think we, to that point, if anybody has any input, please do it before Monday, because we need to upgrade, making sure it's with all the state laws and criteria and so forth, and we've had professionals to make sure that we're in the guidelines. So be ready to act upon the new health insurance. I'm sorry, handbook. Any other comments about the handbook? All right, the next thing is talk about the Commissioner Health Insurance. We've delayed this item so we can look at it and get feedback from the public and look at it from different angles and so forth. I'm open for discussion on what we call the Commissioner Health Insurance. Any discussion? Well, keep getting input, and then, commissioners, you'll be in a position to voice your opinion, and hopefully all 5 commissioners will be ready to deal with the Commissioner Health Insurance coming Monday.
I will say this, Mr. Chairman, that from the time that we adjourned our last meeting where this was initially discussed, I had a minimum of 3 people before I got to my vehicle approach me and ask me not to vote. And since that time have had a significant number of people approach me, all opposed to the Board of Commissioners having insurance. You know, again, it's against our policy, it's against our handbook. Our handbook is very specific and concise. It says employment is full-time when an employee is not hired as a part-time or seasonal employee and is hired to work at least 32 hours a week. And again, as I have previously referenced, the legislation itself that created this body specifically defines us as part-time. So it is a violation of our own policy by allowing this benefit to be reinstated for the board members. And the opposition that I have heard has been overwhelming, you know, against.
Likewise,
Any comment? Mr. Harper?
now, and I, just for clarification, this is going to be for only the commissioners only, correct? We're not opening up any insurance to any other part-time employees of anybody in the county, is that correct?
It's called Commissioner's Health Insurance, that's correct.
Okay, so there's 50 to 60 part-time employees, including ourselves. And we're the only ones that's going to be voting to have insurance as a part-time employee.
That's why we're taking a long time to consider this item and talk to the public.
I know at our last meeting, it was basically stated to us that Obamacare would force or compel the county to provide health insurance for part-time employees, and that was somewhat of a basis to bring this up for a vote. So if that's one of the compelling factors, then why does it exclude all of the other part-time employees?
Basically, what it says, y'all keep saying part-time, but what it actually is part-time salaried employees. And there are no more part-time salaried employees in this county. They're part-time, and part-time employees make more than the commissioners, if you want to look at whatever cost-wise on what you get. But the thing is, you keep making relevance to part-time employees, whereas part-time salaried employees is what it says, as far as what you're talking about. And we currently, if it's unethical and all this, and our handbook has been since '02, then from '02 up until currently present, we have basically been doing exactly against what you say when y'all were on the board.
I agree.
I didn't interrupt, just let me speak. And But the thing is, with that, and it's just like with you, your employer takes, it's basically, we only have one commissioner on the health insurance, basically. And in doing so, he doesn't have to stay on there. If it's unethical, he could have come off and been ethical, as far as with everything goes.
So that's part
Well,
of.
not having a full understanding of what you stated, number one, this was one of the first issues that I wanted to address, because right after I was actually, elected and became a board member and had an understanding of the levels of compensation and benefits, I saw this. It was a definite conflict. It just took that many years to get a board that was willing to vote away a perk. And as part of that vote, we were not going to, in midstream, require any commissioner all of a sudden just to not have the insurance. The insurance would go away at the end of their term, and the one commissioner that you're referring to is Commissioner Harper, and he voted in favor, and it was to be eliminated at the end of his term regardless of.
But it doesn't have to be at the end of his term, though. He
Well,
can choose
it
to come
does
in.
with-
It didn't have to be, because the first time you brought it up, I encouraged you to vote that night, to do away with it that night, and if you want to vote on it tonight, we will vote on it tonight, and I will be in favor of it. Would you like, would you like to put up to do away with
You
the,
talk, wait a minute, excuse me. One
to
talking
terminate
time.
all,
You're-
if you
you're-
want to make an offer to terminate all commissioners, wait a minute, don't interrupt me.
I didn't say a word.
Uh,
I know you like to think I was,
Don't
but I'm
interrupt,
not.
don't interrupt me.
I'm not.
If you would like to make a motion, I'll second it, that we will immediately terminate all commissioners' insurance. If you'd like to do that, I'd be all for it, and I told you back when we first brought it up, but nobody ever wanted to go that far.
Okay,
I'd like to say one thing.
Mr. Franklin.
I was an elected official. All Franklin County does is writes me a check. I don't consider myself a county employee. The people of this county put me in office. And the way I see it, if y'all voted to do away with it, it should have been done right then if it's unethical.
Okay,
That's the way I see it.
all right. So keep taking input from the public, keep looking at this issue, and once and for all, we're gonna tackle it Monday night. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, next on here, we continue looking at how we can improve roads. And like I stated previously, I think we've made a lot of progress on roads, and a lot of payments, and a lot of resurfacing and so forth. And we have a road here that we're zeroing in on. Commissioner James, would you explain that to us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have provided each one of y'all a Google map, and the road that we're going to discuss is Atkinson Bridge Road. And just to give you a very quick overview, Atkinson Bridge Road is currently a gravel road that connects Harrison Bridge Road to State Route 51 / State Route 145. There is a singular bridge structure on Atkinson Bridge over near the Harrison Bridge Road end, which basically will only accommodate single vehicle crossing due to the width. I know shortly after I was elected, I was contacted by several of the residents from Atkinson Bridge Road and asked what could be done about upgrading this particular road. There's a significant amount of traffic, it being a cut-through road connecting a high-traffic volume county road to a state route. So we looked at options, and at that point in time, we felt that our best option would be to go to GDOT and have a road improvement project that would widen Atkinson Bridge Road from the beginning terminus to the ending terminus, and also widen the current bridge structure, which will only accommodate singular vehicle traffic. We ran into a roadblock because GDOT at that point in time required a 60-foot right-of-way throughout the project limits. If you could not acquire the right-of-way, then you would not qualify for the type of funding needed for this project. So there were, I know, one major property owner that had a significant amount of frontage, which virtually constrained that option. We have been looking at various options in order to improve this roadway over the last couple of years, and as all of y'all are aware, with the major changes with GDOT, with the major changes in federal and state funding, in order to improve this roadway, we have had to look at a reduced scope of work. And what I'm going to be proposing Monday night is that on Atkinson Bridge Road, from State Route 145 and State Route 51 to a point 900 to 1,000 feet back east of the existing bridge structure, which will encompass the last residence on that side of the bridge, that we put an application of double surface treatment pavement, which, as you're aware, is significantly less costly than conventional asphalt, and will bring this substandard dirt road up to parity with the amount of traffic as well as the number of residences on this road. You know, historically, Atkinson Bridge Road is one of the roads that has required more maintenance, more placement of gravel than a lot of others in the county due to the grade, due to the truck traffic, and due to just the sheer volume of traffic that navigates and utilizes not only for access to residences, but as a connector roadway. Paving this will also not only eliminate the continuous and repetitive maintenance required, it will enhance the safety, and we have had drainage problems also in the past. As a matter of fact, within the last couple of months, I know John had to schedule a joint exercise with GDOT because of water coming off of Atkinson Bridge Road, transitioning, going across 51 and 145, transitioning down the current ditch structure onto private property. So that is another one of those things that could be corrected by utilizing the double surface treatment on this section of roadway. Now, the one aspect that we need to evaluate further, and we do have several of the residents here tonight, while the road primarily will accommodate two-way traffic once paved, if we pave the existing roadway surface. What I would like to do, because you're going to probably have increased traffic volumes and you are going to have increased vehicle speeds if this section of roadway gets paved with the surface treatment application. I would like to see either the contract include a slight amount of widening and shifting of the ditches back, where at a minimum we had preferably 18 to 20 foot of actual pavement, which would then accommodate a center line. As we previously had discussed, the right-of-way on the roadway, all but one parcel, was available, and it is my understanding, and I would ask for concurrence from some of the residents that I've been in contact with, for the operation that we're talking about now, which would be minimally invasive, because the current right-of-way is ditch to ditch on Atkinson Bridge from the bridge back to 51 and 145. The residents from that point to the ending point at the bridge would be willing to give a small amount of right-of-way to accommodate the widening of the road to 18 to 20 feet, with a small shoulder and a ditch section to properly conduct the water. Am I correct in making that statement?
Correct.
Okay. So, and I will state that, you know, any moving forward with this project would be contingent on getting the appropriate easements necessary to widen the road out, which minimal it is. It still needs to be at minimum 18 foot in order to accommodate traversing two-way traffic. John, I know that you have also taken a look at this. You know, we're looking at approximately 5,860 linear feet. As we stated, the ending terminus would be about 900 foot east of the bridge that would accommodate all the residents on that side of the bridge and allow adequate transition from the end of the proposed paved section to the point where you transition back down to single vehicle traffic crossing over the bridge. And again, another aspect would be the dependency on SPOS funding specifically allocated for roads. I'm gonna ask staff to evaluate that. I think this is a very worthwhile project. I just wanna make sure that we do not spend money that's not there, nor that we spend money that we have got to have to leverage state or federal dollars that we know of with the striping and off-road safety grants, et cetera. But, you know, I would ask that you evaluate that at our meeting Monday, and I will be asking for a vote that we basically move forward with paving via double surface treatment of Atkinson Bridge Road from 51 and 145 to a point 900 feet east of the bridge. Contingent on funding and contingent on the availability of the right-of-way.
Is there anything gonna have to ever be done to the bridge? Is it in good shape for the
The bridge
future?
structure is in fairly good shape. The GDOT bridge sufficiency rating does not require immediate maintenance or improvements to the bridge structure.
When was the last time that bridge was, because it's gonna increase and you're gonna have more traffic or whatever, is any bigger, like semis or anything go down that road?
They already do.
School bus.
They already do?
They already do.
bus.
I mean, I do not anticipate, you know, this attracting any larger vehicles. You know, I can't say that it doesn't, but it's adequately signed currently, and your transition point is gonna be back far enough where it's not gonna present a safety hazard or issue.
The bridge is not that old, it's there. It's been replaced.
Has-
Yeah, the bridge has been replaced, and it's not that old. They did a great deal of work just a few years.
Yeah, and like I said, the only thing that I was looking at initially is looking to widen the structure in order to accommodate two-way traffic. You know, why, when the improvements were made, that it did not, I do not know. It's one of the few bridges we have that are still single lane.
Will we be able to get the, signatures of all the
Well, this,
people by Monday?
okay,
Because you're gonna have to
vote,
widen it to paint.
the vote that I'm gonna ask for will be contingent on the availability of funding and the acquisition of any
Required.
required signatures.
Okay.
It's gonna require a small amount of engineering work on our part to see exactly where the right-of-way is going to be needed.
Okay.
So that will be the motion that I make. It will be predicated on acquisition of the right-of-way and the SPOS funding to make sure it doesn't compromise or jeopardize leveraging of other funding.
But Ben, look, skip ahead.
The, right-of-way's been located all the way on the right side going down, and we own part of it on the left side coming up. But the guy that keep this thing come to, that owns the big barn, he don't live there, they just come at times on the weekends. Well, his son, is that your son's son? I talked with him this week about it, we was talking about it, he said, well, the guy came over to his place and they talked, and he just asked him, he said, run forward to him, you know, why, you know, about the right-of-way, we're trying to get some work done on the road, about why, you know, you don't want to have, he said, wait, he said, I don't have no objection. He said, that was, from my understanding, his brother, which is not tied to it. And now, somewhere, there was two brothers that bought that to begin with, but he said, he told his son, I hadn't talked with the guy, because they just come at times, you know, but he said that he had no objection, no problem with the right-of-way doing the road.
And, you know, any
That
vote
was
taken
only
would be
one.
predicated on the ability to
Yeah.
get a minimal amount of right-of-way. You know, one other point that I would like to bring up is the fact that the minor amount of additional work that's gonna be required, we could look at it in two different ways. One, it's something that could be easily done by our county forces, just depending on if they had time to do it or not, or we could put it in the contract and have it included. So we have two different options there that we can look at.
And I'd like to ask one question, if I could, especially for you, Mr. Brooks. I know at one point we had talked about the possibility of maybe water.
Yes, sir.
That was to be the
that-
next.
Okay.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Well, that was last year, I was going my next, because I believe it was last year, we talked about water coming down the road, didn't we?
Yes,
Well,
That's what we thought.
yes, that won't be no problem.
Well, you already have water on the side from the bridge back to Harrison Bridge Road, where it provides service to Riverside Church and then terminates down there just before the bridge. So another aspect is you have approximately 20 residences on this road, and most have appeared to be very interested in, having county water, which would be tying into the existing water on 51 and 145 and making a connection on Atkinson Bridge to the existing dead-end segment, which would provide continuity in this system, for y'all fire protection, provide, quality water. I know y'all have had issues with water quality and water levels and concentration in your wells. But again, one of the things that we look at when it comes to water, we would have to have the right-of-way, and we would want a commitment from enough of the residents that would be willing to tie on that would justify the capital outlay expenditure for the placement of the water. So.
And that may also have some impact on how much right-of-way we would actually need if we want to consider water in the future.
Well, like I said, right now, as far as I know, on the right-hand side of the road, we've got plugs from road to road for water. We got it. I think that wouldn't be no problem. Like I said, we're gonna go back to them again. I'll talk to them about it on the road. On the right-hand side, and like I said, I could talk to the other guy.
Yeah, now if there's gonna be right-of-way acquisition, it would only make sense to handle it all in one acquisition.
There's no residence from what he's talking about stopping the road. There's no residence from there to Riverside Church. Nobody
Right.
lives there. And they got pavement to that point. The church road's paved to that point. And there's no residence. So, and that, well, it's a problem. I mean, I don't understand people that it's got highways going out every direction and they want to come through that daggone dirt road flying. I drive 5 miles out of the way every day.
Well, just know, as we talked about, if the project is ever built, you're going to have an increased traffic volume and you're going to have increased vehicle speeds.
But we have 2 lanes right up.
I understand. I'm just making you aware as per our conversations.
We have in places, but the school bus, I don't know who drives the bus, but it flies, that lady flies through there. And there's no kids on that road, she picks up nobody. Nobody, it's just a cut through. And then we have the egg trucks and the trailers, pick up the eggs. And if you meet them, you gotta back to it, they're not gonna back up.
So I just asked my colleagues to be prepared to vote on moving forward with that project predicated on, as we stated, the funding and the right-of-way.
One point I'd like to make is, it's a safety issue as well. I have met several vehicles in the curves that have forced me into the ditch because they've been coming around sideways. Whereas if you've got some kind of asphalt treatment or whatever, at least you've got a center line to where the sheriff and his deputies can determine who is at fault. Right now, there's no way.
You can't put radar on the thing anymore.
And I pay enough in insurance now as it is. I don't want to have to.
Well, like I said, it is a win-win. It's one of the most highly maintained roads. I'm sure that Ralph and our crew would love to have this section of roadway where they were basically able to pass over it. It's going to improve safety, improve the drainage, and provide the long-term residents with a better pavement structure.
The county's been excellent good. The gravel and doing what has been done, through the road. They've been excellent about getting in, especially with the rain, mud, and it's helped a substantial lot, but it's just a steel washboard road after a day or two when it's scraped, it's right back. And I've had my truck at Milford's twice already this year, alignments on the front end of it, not counting a lot of the other people up down the road. And, and we like to ride in clean cars like y'all do. When we get to the highway, we don't have a clean car. And we pay lots of money for cars. Nowadays, we moved there in 1950. And we've been there I haven't been there. I lived in Atlanta 52 years and had a business in Atlanta. But I had a place here, I paid taxes, you can look back on the record, I paid taxes on houses here all my life almost. And I bought automobile tags here all my life. Yet, though my work, now, when I come back home, you know, come back to stay, and it's home to me, and, you know, it's different now than it was 1950.
Yeah, much different.
Much different.
I think Jimmy Carter was a dirt road in 1950.
Yeah, but you know what Billy, Jimmy's mama said about that? He said, Billy said, Mama, why don't I stay down here at this old service station and work? And Jimmy get to be if I hadn't been president. She said, you know Jimmy ain't got no sense for a service station.
Okay, let's move on. I know we've been talking about this project before, and we saw it come low key, but it's certainly a good project. A through road that, like you said, they're going to cut through there to save miles, no matter what it is. We take this project on, we make the road more safer for the traffic, and try to do it upright with water and pavement. Roads that we need to be ready for, all of this would hinge on several factors, and I won't repeat what Commissioner Jake said, but it will be a good start point. Any other comments about this project?
Are you also considering running the natural gas through there if it's approved?
Well, that's why we want to keep the natural gas flowing. You know,
If this goes through, you,
that would be an excellent through spot to bring natural gas through there. Working with Royston, City of Royston Natural Gas, they're trying hard to expand their company, so to speak, and it's a public company. It's not belonging to a private entity. Therefore, I understand it can receive splash funds. Of course, it would have to be negotiable how we're going to use the tax dollars and where we're going to put those gas lines. But I foresee natural gas expanding throughout the county, just like the commissioners and others have been working to expand the water throughout the county. I think it's beginning to start now. I wished it had started 10 years ago, but I think it's up and go.
Just for clarification, the City of Royston is the gas service provider, and it is within their legal service delivery area.
yes.
That's correct.
Would it require more right of way, or would it be following the same?
The amount of right of way that would be acquired for the placement of the water
Would take care of it.
would be adequate and sufficient to place the gas.
Any other comments about this project, Atkinson Bridge Road? Let's move to Benton Drive, and we do adopt different roads with the landowners on each side to give right of way from ditch to ditch. Mr. James, tell us what you got there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have received a call from Mr. Rodney Hill. Mr. Hill is a resident of Benton Drive, which is located off of Highway 17, just back south of Cannon. And if you'll look at the Google map that I provided, it will show Benton Drive, which is just south of Minish Road. The road is approximately 810 linear feet. In pulling the tax assessor's website, there are 9 adjacent parcels to Benton Road. Benton Road is currently a private road, and looking back historically, has never been maintained by the county, but has been maintained by the residents. And the request from the residents, given the recent change in our road policy, they are requesting maintenance of Benton Road from ditch to ditch, from State Route 17 to the existing ending terminus of the roadway. If the map is not clear, I will show you this from the actual tax map. And I advised Mr. Hill that I would bring his request before the board. I did explain to him that before any action could be taken, the residents needed to know and understand that any vote that we take approving this type of maintenance will require a signature and easement from every adjacent property owner that bounds Benton.
We've certainly been able to take on additional roads simply because they are taxpaying citizens. And a lot of these private roads, that's willing to give up the roads and let's make it a public road. naturally, it costs funds for the county, but naturally, also those people pay taxes.
And like I said, you've got about 810 linear feet. The road is it is wide enough to accommodate two-way traffic. Another contingency that I would state before we would consider this is, number one, it would only require minimal maintenance. The road is actually in pretty good shape, just a small amount of gravel and blading, but we would need a designated easement cul-de-sac turnaround point at the end of the existing roadway in order to accommodate our equipment and vehicles.
Is there any way that we could work with the city of Cannon, since it's so close to the city limits of Cannon, that with Cannon getting a new motor grader, that they could actually work that, just like, say, what happens up on Foxy Lane, where we got to go in Stevens County and did something like that?
I'm sure we could approach them. I know that the resident, being in such close proximity to the city, has already petitioned that the city work it, and the city advised them that it was in the county, and the county would ultimately be responsible if any maintenance were provided. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
And then what else, and just thinking outside the box, as far as if they were to be, say, maybe annexed into the city, like Livonia annexed in several things as far as...
Well, and I understand that, but we're basing our discussion today on the current scenario with it being inside the county. I mean, yeah, that would be a city matter or city issue.
That's what I'm saying, if we could work with the municipality, I think they work together. Good.
Yeah.
So basically, what we would be doing is like we've done in the past. If we approve to give them permission to go ahead and start the process, and we do our part, making sure that we get the easements and this type of thing.
Yes, sir.
And once that's taken care of, then it would come back to the commissioner for approval.
If that is, well, the approval would be granted, predicated on acquisition of all the appropriate easements.
That's correct.
I don't think that it would need to come back before the board. It would just be the pleasure of the board Monday night or at such time we deem appropriate to vote.
All those.
Just like we did, what was it, Benfield Lane? That's
Yes,
in
sir.
Dunlop, wasn't it? Same thing we're doing.
Right.
Okay.
Sounds good. Any other discussion about Benton Drive? Let's move to proposed purchase and order. I'll call on our county manager, John Phillips, to explain the ordinance that we are looking at.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we have talked quite some time about developing a policy as far as purchase orders for purchases made by the county. What you have before you is actually a policy that was actually developed by ACCG and working with another county government. It's simply been changed from that government to Franklin County. Couple of things that I would point out is number one, we received this not too long ago, so it really has not been reviewed by either department heads or by any of our constitutional officers, and I think that would definitely be appropriate before we really move forward with the document. But I know there are a few things that I think specifically we need to look at and address as far as some changes to make it best fit Franklin County. But like I say, I know we've talked about this several times, and so I'm just asking that you take a look at this, and then I'd like certainly for our staff to take a look at it. I know Elaine is taking a quick look, but I'd like to take a look at it and address comments both from the board and from our staff before we really look forward.
We're not looking at any type of vote Monday night on
That is correct.
Thank you.
At least I would not suggest a vote on that.
Agreed.
Right, this is just a starting point. Appreciate Mr. Phillips for putting this together. And let's make sure we get it out, communicated to all the personnel that it may affect, and I'm sure it's going to need to be critiqued to fit our needs and so forth. And then if we come up with a final solution there, then we'll move forward with that. Any other discussion about the purchase order ordinance? Let's look next on the item about the jail expansion. Ever since I came into office in January 13, I've been looking at this issue, and we address this issue pretty regular basis and so forth. I think we all agree that we need to move forward and take care of our own prisoners. I don't think that's a question mark. I think the question is how we're going to fund it, how we're going to finance it, and how we're going to make sure that we do it in a very effective way, so it does not put the county in a financial bind, but also taking care of needs that we need to take care of. Any discussion about the jail comments? Now, I believe, Mr. Phillips, we've probably, I made reference to the fact that we've actually addressed this issue, looked at it several ways, and you did a overview of some of the things. Do you have that with you tonight?
I do, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to just sort of briefly tell us, to familiarize us how we're trying to, as a group of commissioners, to solve this issue briefly? And I know there'll be some other stuff that probably won't be in what you have there, but briefly give us what you got.
I'll be glad to do that, and basically this is just sort of a summary of activity that's taken place, at least since I've been involved with evaluating the jail expansion and where we are. And I'll start with the fact that, as you know, our current SPLOST actually runs through 2016, and the jail expansion project is not included as a part of those SPLOST funds. In other words, all the sales tax monies that are collected under the current SPLOST, none of that was designated to go toward the jail expansion project. However, the jail expansion was a part of the previous SPLOST, which was in 2005. We do have funds set aside from that SPLOST, and we do have some funds set aside in the jail fund. Unfortunately, however, those amounts are not sufficient to do the expansion as proposed.
And while we're there, do you have those amounts?
And I asked Elaine to pull those numbers together earlier this week, and at the time, we were looking at $776,724 in the jail fund. We were looking at $98,277 in the jail SPLOST fund. And again, that was what I would call the previous SPLOST that ended.
So does that mean we got about 870,000?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
Just
correct.
one, okay.
That's correct. Now, that leads us to, and the sheriff's here, Gary Smith is here, and they can speak to this in more detail, but as you know, this project has been looked at for quite a few years. Back in December of 2013, we were presented with a construction estimate by the architect that was retained to develop the plans. I think all of us, or at least previous numbers, we were expecting a number somewhere around $1.5 million for construction. Of course, over time, prices change and different things happen. In December of 2013, the architect presented us a construction estimate that was actually $2.8 million, significantly above the $1.5 million. At the county's direction, the architect took a look at the construction cost estimate, did some revisions, and was able to reduce that somewhat from $2.8 million to $2.4 million. Again, we're looking at about $870,000 of available funds for the project. Therefore, the Board of Commission really started looking at options as far as funding the expansion. My favorite money for the county is grant money, which is free money. Unfortunately, that grant funding is non-existent as far as jail expansion projects. We found that to be true even after we investigated, and we had been told by funding folks and grant writers that there was no money. We just substantiated what they had told us. In fact, there's no grant funding available. The next step that we took really was to look at the possibility of issuing bonds for financing the project. One of the things that was a big negative in my opinion regarding the issuance of bonds was the fact that Our cost just for issuing the bonds for financing the project, we were told would be $110,500 by the time we had obtained the bond attorneys and went through that process. We actually looked at some of our local banks. The downside to it was that it looked like we were really looking at a long period for no longer than 10 years and at a slightly higher interest rate than the bond option. We then looked at the possibility of phasing the construction, that is, doing several different things as far as starting work with some county forces, as far as site work. We also looked at the possibility of maybe building the entire shell of the structure, but only completing a limited number of pods and trying to cut costs. Even looking at that, the architect had indicated that we would have very little savings initially in the project. Long term, it would end up costing us substantially more to get the entire project done. I'll try to answer any questions that you may have, but that's pretty much where we are today. We've tried to look at all the options that we could identify as far as funding the project, but
We're looking at
unfortunately,
self-funding also,
that is
with creating a revenue stream to pay off that debt to ourselves out of the general fund.
that is correct.
Was it general fund or what's in the CD?
Well, it's all the same.
All the
Oh,
same with
okay.
the revenue there. So we looked in trying to phase the bill, building, say, one pod or getting started. But in my judgment, we would be in good shape if it had not come off the splash. We would have been able to already have the jail probably, or getting close to having the jail. But you can't dwell on what took place in 2010. We have to look at where we're at today and try to solve this issue. You know, people have suggested maybe we need to up the millage by 2 mills and go ahead and take care of building the jail. In my perspective, if we did that, 40% of the people in the county that has property, pays property taxes, would be handling the cost of constructing the jail. So that's why I feel like it's much better to tap onto these interstate dollars up and down the interstate corridors and take that splash funds and take care of this project. Reason we're reviewing this tonight is to make sure that everybody knows it's certainly on our minds, and we certainly not giving up on trying to achieve the objective that we have, and that is to making sure that we take care of our own prisoners. I call them our own prisoners. A lot of them from out of county, this type of thing. But housing inmates, I guess is a better term. So please give us any ideas that you have. Feel free to talk to our manager and just keep working on this issue and see if we can come up with something that would be successful for the citizens of the county, and certainly something that we can afford. Now, I've talked enough. Who else would like to speak about the jail?
I'd just like to ask, when, skip on.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
I just have one question about the jail and knowing what the cost of the construction, and I haven't read the construction bid or anything, but in reading some reports about the jails and looking at the staffing ratio, how much of that number is considered as far as continuing ongoing cost to man the jail for additional things? And what about the technology? And reading a lot of it, a lot of the security gets beefed up through technology. Are we looking at investing in the technology in the jail, and is that number included? I just don't think that number is. My fear is we construct it and then all of a sudden go, oh, you know what? We'd be better off to spend another $400,000 on better technology, and then we're left with a brand new jail and insufficient.
What we were told was this would include the most innovative state-of-the-art technology with the design and all of the other features that should minimize the levels of staffing that's required.
Well, staffing was not involved.
No, not staffing,
Just understand, but, you know, in saying that, there are two aspects. There's construction costs, And then there is the levels of staffing that are gonna be required, and the numbers that we've seen thus far at a absolute minimum is gonna be $200,000 per year at a minimum.
Which wasn't included.
No, that is in no way
That's
Just
all
saying.
included.
Just asking you a question.
Yeah,
That
I
was
mean, that's
not
a point
included.
to consider
So
for
that's a
next year,
continuing
so
cost too.
You increase
the
the
budget.
taxes to build the jail, which I'm not opposed to building the jail, just the timing of it, the funding of it, but also, and keep in mind of that funding, you gotta look at the total cost to determine the return on investment. Is there really more cost involved? And I can imagine technology being a huge
The
cost.
2.4 million that we have given as far as the construction included the security, included everything as far as the construction, ready for the jail actually to operate.
And ongoing maintenance and
Now,
monitoring.
it did not include the
Not
maintenance as
staffing.
far as the staffing,
Utilities.
what I would call operation and maintenance. When we looked at that, utilities, staffing and everything, we were looking at somewhere around the area of $140,000 per year for those costs.
I just think when we do the analysis of whether or not it's a sufficient project.
Okay.
I
for
disagree
the-
with the numbers. It was $140,000 just for staffing.
No, it was 200,000, I can pull up the old meeting minutes, it was 200,000 for staffing, and then all other incidental items such as utilities were in addition to the 200,000.
What we had in talking with the architect, and these are numbers from him, was $2,000 per month in utilities and $9,282 staffing.
And that's running what ratios? Do you know the current ratios that we currently have?
That's, I think the staffing numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the staffing numbers were not at the same ratio as far as staff to inmates for the new facility as they are for the current facility.
Well,
I think they were somewhat less.
I asked our sheriff what would be the staffing, and when I did the math on, when you count retirement, you count insurance, you count everything, just staffing was gonna run, it was literally over $140,000.
Now this does not include benefits.
That's what I'm saying.
This includes the pay plus
That's still
utilities.
Yeah,
a capital expenditure, it has to be factored in.
it'll be a minimum of $200,000. I'm confident.
And I can imagine they probably need more staff, to be honest with you. You've got a nice new facility, you want to keep, yeah, so you'd have to consider, okay, are we gonna run bare minimum, or are we really gonna put the money? And I guess as a taxpayer, I look at, do you really need a jail, or do we need new cops on the force? What's most important?
Nothing's
And I
ever-
haven't looked at it enough to know, but I know right now, money-wise, I don't know that financially it makes
Well,
sense, what we're paying out versus what we'll have to build.
it's never less than you think it is. It's always more.
Right, and I think sometimes those get, especially in government projects where we build something out and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I forgot that we need this. But you can't finish the project without adding it to the bill.
And then you have to go to the taxpayer.
Again, and
And
that's the last thing
why
we want
with
to hear.
SPOS dollars, it's best because it's just like Chairman Bridges was alluding to the 2 mil increase. It's like with Miss here, I'd like to ask you, on the grand jury members don't have to be taxpayers. They're just basically people who live in the county. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So they don't have to be a taxpayer. So they don't mind saying raise the millage.
Somebody else's money. Okay,
Well,
Thank you.
they live here in Franklin County.
Yeah, they live here in Franklin, but they
Buy,
don't.
but,
they don't own property though.
I don't know. I mean, that's not a criteria we ask.
That's what I'm saying.
They have to be a United States citizen, live in Franklin County, not a convicted felon, not a constitutional officer, and over the age of 18. That's all the
already.
criteria for a
No,
grand jury.
even if they rent though, their rent will go up to
Right.
cover the taxes. So
Then
they
you got
will
the people who
pay.
don't pay their rent.
You're right.
I can tell you, I got
My brain don't work like
$150,000
that. I
or
pay
something
my
like that, you
bills.
know?
Well, I think.
And you go to the
Well,
magistrate.
Mr. Chairman, in looking at these numbers,
Okay,
I don't see any possible way, and I have evaluated these from A to Z, that we can move forward with anything, given current financial status, until the SPOS gets here. And I'm not gonna argue the need, I support jail construction. I've got 7 years worth of data of what we paid out beginning in 2007. And the two primary issues for the jail is the overcrowding and the housing out cost, as well as, the staffing issues that basically, puts on the sheriff and his staff. But we're looking at, in 2007, we spent $6,400 In 2008, we spent $70,650. 2009, we spent $17,960. 2010, we spent $4,295. 2011, we spent $6,489. 2012, $17,329. In 2013, $11,917. In the fiscal year of 2014, July 1st through December 31st, we spent $32,687. To me, to get us from the point to where we are now and coming up with a financially feasible and viable way to fund this jail construction, we don't have an alternative but to wait until the SPLOST gets here. You know, we had a significant overrun in the budget this past year, which took money out of our reserve fund. We have had no change in our actual loss, which is the local option sales tax dollars, is one of the primary funding mechanisms for the county. The property tax digest has basically been flat. We don't have the money to handle the construction, not to mention the levels of staffing. And when I look at these numbers, and the primary motive being the savings to the taxpaying citizen for the housing out, I don't see it.
Well, I'm saying all that, Commissioner, I think we all agree.
Not that I'm not 100% supportive. It's just got to be done in a manner that is financially viable for everybody. And that's where I stand on the issue.
And basically, maybe we have a genius in the county somewhere that hadn't stepped forward and tell us how we're going to pull these numbers together so when it would be safe to start the construction.
And, you know, as John said, we had some options that we felt like were somewhat viable until we ended up with a huge deficit, and also that deficit and projected level of spending is transitioned into this fiscal year also with no change in the revenue. So you're looking at basically $1.6 million in additional spending with no increase in revenue over a 2-year cycle.
2 years. Any other comments that we don't throw out tonight? We just want to keep this alive and on the table and come up with a viable working solution. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to offer, non-political here, just going back, being the jail administrator, the cost, the monies and stuff that we had set aside for jail staffing construction. One of the areas that, and I'm saying we, did not consider or think about over the years, the jail that we currently have ages. It's constantly got people living in it, there's constant traffic, 24/7, 365 days a year, requiring maintenance. No funding was ever set aside to help care and maintain the county jail that we currently have. So if you go back and look at what we spent, we started saying, well, you know, it's jail staffing construction. Construction, we can take and remodel our kitchen. We can take and put all new air units that were 20 years old, and, you know, we were spending $1,000 a week to try to get somebody to come out and keep them running for us. So we could use that money instead of saving it for the new jail. We had to use it because we didn't plan, and we still are not planning, for the future of the county jail. And you can dress it up any way you want to dress it up. At some point, somewhere down the road, you're going to have to do something. And it's just a question of how we prepare. That's it in a nutshell. It's like that Pennzoil commercial. You can pay now or you can pay later, but eventually you're going to have to pay. And it's just a question of how far we put it down the road as to how much we're going to have to pay. That's where we find ourselves. I got hit today. I didn't even tell the sheriff about this. Our maintenance folks come over, and they're talking. You know, we had everybody know about the water lines, the pressure and the explosion and everything that was created, the pressure that went through Carnesville. Is that a yes or
no?
Okay. There was so much pressure it blew out the hot water heaters at the county jail, blew the back of my office with water. They had to come in and repair them. Well, those water lines in the county jail are copper, and they're 21 years old. And all this constant pressure that's against them is gonna require some maintenance. Just heard it from the guys today, that it's coming. And we're either gonna prepare for these items that are gonna come down the road, plus the building of a new jail, because believe me, the criminals are not listening at all. They're still continuing to break the law, and they're still coming to jail. They haven't slowed down at all. They're not listening to you guys at all. They're still coming in droves. So we're still having to house. I think if you look at the amount of money we spent since this new fiscal year started, where we're at, I think it was 284% over budget already within 3 months, but nobody's jumping up and down and screaming about it. We just continue to let it ride and hope it'll go away. That's what we're looking at.
I don't think that's
the
mindset
reality.
whatsoever. That's pure conjecture.
I'm just saying.
And well, when we look at your budget, you know, when you're talking about the specific needs at the jail, if the jail's a priority, why do we go out here and construct a brand new investigator's office with the cost approaching $90,000? If the jail is a priority, why do we have other expenditures? And I could go down the list, but I won't, because I don't try to prioritize y'all's work. But if it is truly the top priority of the maintenance and the jail expansion, let's look at other expenditures and where other money's gone.
Let's
And I
do
think-
this.
And I think,
It does.
I think you're, you know, with all due respect, I think you'll look back at your budget. I don't think where I see most overspending is vehicles, and overtime is a huge amount. And, I mean, you're saying it's the maintenance on the jail, but I didn't see.
No, I'm trying to explain to you that these are things that are coming, and we're
Okay,
telling you about these things.
I thought you were talking about the.
I told you, I just heard today. You're hearing it within 8 hours of me hearing it. It's an issue that's coming.
This account we had, it was a nice amount of money, but like you said, we're in the old jail. We had to redo the roof. That's $150,000, I think, we had to put in that roof. That's what he's saying, they didn't plan for that. You know, and then the pipe deal, you know. Copper, yeah, it used to be the thing to do, but now it's not. And that's what we're getting into, so we're in an old place now. But, you know, each time we did something, it's failed. You know, it's backed us up within the wall again. That's like putting Jimmy in this building. Well, if we'd have done it like we asked, you know, when to do it, you know, we'd been fine, because we want to take part of this money out of the spot of the jail staff and construction, because it's actually part of my department. Well, that didn't happen, you know. And anyway, we can go back and figure yesterday what we did and what we should have did, you know. But the point was, my guys were already out of room. I had to go do something, you know. And we took part of our federal forfeiture money and paid for part of this. But still, yeah, we still got the same problem in our jail. I finally got enough room where Jimmy and them could breathe. When you got people coming in and want to talk to investigators, they don't want to see the inmates to see them go in there. That's their security, you know, coming to a different place. So, you know, we did what we had to do there. You know, I wish the SPLOST thing would come up tomorrow. Because, you know, I understand that, you know, there is an issue of money, but, you know, overtime. You look what we had last year. We had 1,000 more calls than we ever had in our life. Well, we had to put people out there to do that. And then, of course, we had the 3 murders, you know, in the first 3 years. So that's hooked us too, you know, but we're trying to look at different things to a little bit different eyes than what y'all are. I know y'all look at the financial part. I'm looking at the safety part for these citizens of our county and people come through it, you know, and it's a juggling act. And we're trying to do everything we can. You know,
Thank you, Sheriff. I think we don't need to dwell on when mistakes was made, and you are correct, planning is the key. We had it on the splash. I'm still wondering what happened when it rolled over in 2010. Splash 2 should have been a piece of the pie for the jail. If that would have happened, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
well, I tell you what part of it was over here at the hospital.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is why did they have to give the whole amount
I can't answer that
instead
question.
of just, why not give a portion of it? Because if they just gave a
We asked-
portion, you'd have the money.
We said, when we talked, it was $1 million. That's what we asked. Well, something with that decimal got moved over, we got $100,000. So, you know, I mean, I ain't gonna blame anybody, but it happened. And we realized what we was getting, that's all we got.
And there's some other issues too that are coming up because we're just now starting to get into this. And Elaine will back me up on this. I've come to her. She's learning as well as I'm learning because now I'm looking at what's going on and we can't account. The sheriff's department buys $8,000, $10,000 worth of gas. He buys it. We have to have our own staff take the cards that the county officials are using, toll it up, send it to the county for the money to be deducted out of the account, but it never shows back up as a credit back to the sheriff's department. No money is ever coming back in to his budget. And we're seeing this now, and we're trying to address and correct it, okay? The housing that we get from all the satellite cities, that's something that the sheriff is providing a service. Should be a credit to the budget. Not there. You don't see it. It's not there.
How can that be resolved?
We're working on it. We're definitely working on it together, not pointing fingers, working on it together.
With the cities, how can that aspect be resolved?
It needs to be put in a line item as a credit back to the sheriff's department for housing prisoners.
That's like any grant we've always got. We pay out, but when the grant money comes in, it don't show back up in my
Okay, I
budget.
understand about the mechanism. I'm saying that are we
There's an
being
issue.
paid by the cities for the housing?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We send in, the checks come to the sheriff's department.
Gotcha.
And we turn around and forward them up to the commissioner's office. But there's never been a line item set aside to say, okay, this is gonna be a credit. Same thing, we also do Social Security. None of that is being credited to the sheriff's department. And again, we're working on these things, we hope to get it fixed. But
Do you mean the 7.65% of salary?
No,
Social
no, no.
Security, what do you mean?
I have a program that's set up at my jail that everybody that comes through my jail, a report is sent to the Social Security office. Just the numbers. If I get a hit for somebody that's receiving Social Security turns around and sends me a check for $400. It's something we do to help them to eliminate the abuse of Social Security. So we get a $400 check every time that's done. That money's coming into the county. It's a service we're providing down at the sheriff's department. We're not getting a credit for it. It goes into general fund, not coming from the sheriff as a credit. There's things like that that are going on that it's going into general fund versus being a credit back coming from the sheriff's department. But again, we're working on it, and I've known Elaine for years, and we're gonna get it. It's just a question of time. But those are the things you look at, looking at last year's budget and 300,000 or 800,000 or however you want to call it, you really don't know because it wasn't done right. We're hoping to get there.
Ma'am, you've got a question?
Yes, sir. And I do performance for a living, so excuse the questions that I asked you, but it sounds to me you have an immediate need, and it sounds like housing is honestly an immaterial number. $17,000 to $35,000 a year was kind of where around the range you rattled off. How much time would using the $800,000 for a total renovation of the existing building, how much time does that buy you from rebuilding it?
We can put the inmates that you got to house them out.
Capacity is one of your big
Well,
issues.
you have to consider the cost of housing them elsewhere while you do it block by block. I mean,
It's
I
not,
work in
it's not
nursing homes,
necessarily
and we have to move
capacity.
patients from wings to wings as we, renovate it, and we renovate
But you
3
gotta
rooms
keep
at a
your
time.
felons away from misdemeanors.
You got a classification to deal with when you're dealing with inmates.
Right,
It's
it would
not
be
just
part of
a
the
group
cost.
number.
I mean, have you looked at it? That would be my question. How much time would it buy you? Knowing the total cost to do a renovation would include those types.
But still,
Would it buy you?
renovation is not gonna help us with our population.
Capacity.
No, that's what I'm
It's a
saying, but will it buy
classification
you
is
5 years until the next SPOS comes around? Or will it only buy you 2 years, and then we're still looking at another 800,000? That number of years that you can buy time with will make a huge difference as to where you get that funding.
We don't have a choice, and we have no way.
Well, I believe we're gonna hit the 35,000 that you talked about for last year. We're gonna hit it in the next month or so. You've already spent that. We're 284% over the budget that was set aside for housing prisoners.
I
Right
just wonder
now.
if it's worth the analysis. I would run it,
We're fighting
if
every
I
day
was
to
in
get
it.
people out, but when we get 3 or 4 out, they say,
Five more coming in?
probation, 5, 6 more's coming in.
And I'm assuming there's data to support that. I'm just saying I would run the analysis.
Yes, there's a
if
daily
everybody's
report
6
that's sent
months.
to each one of the commissioners. They know what the housing is day to day. and they can
Boy,
see
I
how
think
it
we get that, and I
fluctuates.
sure do appreciate if you done explain that thing to me with all those names and all too, Gary, sometimes.
You know what I'm on there?
Just go to the last page and look at the bottom line, because that's where your total count is, and it
Well, I got all
goes
that,
from
I
one
just
extreme to
wondered
the
all
other.
those names and that, and going, Lord of mercy, it's just mind-boggling.
Okay, I've got one last question to ask our sheriff. I know a couple of years ago, a lot of talk was about a work release program. As a matter of fact, I went before the grand jury as they recommended a work release program and not a jail. In the paper last week, it was stated that it was for a jail/work release program. Is this going to be a work release program? Because I know.
When I came to you first, that's what I came and asked for, with the work release center, where people could come to work, come to jail at night, paid an hour wage, for whatever, 1 hour they made that day, and they'd go back to work. And y'all said, well, what if the county don't stay up and they don't have a job? Well, if they don't have a job, they ain't coming there. They have to have a job, and the judge has to order them there. And we had 3 counties wanting to help us do that. But then y'all wanted, it got brought up about the pod and all this stuff. Well, then we looked at all that too, so that y'all didn't want to do the work release. And I see what you're talking about.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I've recently found out, I believe, that ACCG doesn't recommend the county do a work release program because of liability problems. Is that's just hearsay?
I'm not aware of the liability because.
Work release, as far as work release, all you're doing is giving them a place to spend the night and a meal in the morning, and they leave and go to work, and then they come back.
Yeah, but you have to, and I talked to Stevie about it, you're gonna have to staff it 24 hours a day, because what if they're sick? What if they're
Or unless you got
third shift jobs and different things like that. So I was just wanting kind of to get you on record, this is not going to be a work release program.
We've actually done work release in the current jail that we have. It takes a judge to place the order in effect, and we have to be willing to maneuver and manipulate to be able to do it. It's all about how you operate.
Right.
Can we do it? Yes, we can.
I've got one more question, just to ask. I mean, looking at all these different aspects, how long do you think that if we built 2 pods, and I'm not talking about build the whole exterior structure, I'm talking about build the exterior structure that would accommodate the 2 24-bed pods?
Can't do them there. We've got only one room, one spot for a pod. That's where the basketball rec yard is at, because that's the way it's constructed. And I don't see you can put 2 pods in there.
Okay, I'm saying you would put it in the same alignment that you would put the 4, but you would basically just cut it in half.
With additional structure. That's what you're saying?
It was a singular structure with 4 pods
Okay,
in the
the new-
walkway. I'm saying
yeah.
if you built 2
Separate
pods,
structure.
I mean, basically your construction cost is gonna be approximately half. That would give you
That would probably do it by right now.
And, you know, I don't want to go back and then, 5 years down the road, have to look at expanding again, but it might be an alternative that gets us through, that provides safety for your employees, allows you to have the capacity, eliminates or minimizes the housing out of inmates, allows you to have additional capacity for classifications. I would just ask if we looked at that again, because that's possibly something that could be done.
That's feasible.
That's right, with the numbers that we're looking at. I'm just asking if that's something that is feasible. Like I said, I don't want to end up coming back 5 years down the road and somebody else have to worry about it, but that might be the option that we have to go with now.
It would do us for 5 years probably, because the females are the number one thing right now. We're having so many. And that would get us away from Jackson County, put them in there, but still, you're looking within 5 years, the way the probation and all this stuff is going with folks. My God.
But at least in the 5-year period, we've been able to do where we put the jail back on the splosh, and then we come in here and with the almost $878,000 we got, if it is 1.5 million, then with us averaging $1,750 a month, which is what it was over the last 8 years up until January 1st, we could afford that $2,000 because we don't have to borrow. $500,000 from the USDA at 3.5%.
And, one concern that I have is, a lot of the talk is being predicated on the SPLOST, and I myself have brought that up as being a viable alternative. What happens if we get to that point and we've delayed, and then either a SPLOST is not put together, or if it's put on the ballot and it fails, then we're all sitting there back to square one.
Well, but then the taxpayers have decided they want to increase their taxes if it fails.
I don't see how we're gonna
I
support
don't think that's what it
services
means.
without a tax.
Well, it means if
What
they don't vote, if it doesn't pass,
As
basically
long
what
as
I'm saying
it's a good element
is
to
they're
have
gonna
on
wind,
the
they have
zone.
no choice, they're gonna have to foot the
And you
bill.
gotta do
But
something.
at least they got the choice to vote for it and pass it, so they don't have
Well,
to pay 1 cent.
I would ask you to basically convey that to the citizenry, because the citizens that I've talked to are not in favor of a tax increase. They want government to do like they've had to do in their personal business, like they've had to do in their personal lives, and cut back and make tough decisions.
Yeah, I understand, I'm a taxpayer, I understand what it means, but if I wanna have the protection and the services that are being provided by Franklin County, I'm willing to pay an increase, if that's what's
But there are
required.
many that are not, and they won't, and I'm just stating, some of the feedback that I've got, they want us to make tough decisions as far as, where does that fall in the list of priorities? Like, like I said, the business that I've worked for has had to make major cutbacks. All of us have had to make cutbacks in our personal lives and otherwise.
I understand that but if you look at what's coming from Atlanta this way, it's not a question will, it's a question of when.
Well, the
It's coming.
problem is, we don't wanna wait until I understand everything, and I
You get a
see what's
consent
coming,
order. You don't
I
want a
see
consent
what's
order.
coming in, I mean, we've got 193 to be arraigned this month, next month, more than I think we've ever had.
Well, that's why I'm throwing out another option to see if
But we
that-
don't wanna wait till like we did before, and have the federal government come in here and tell you what you're gonna do.
Then you'll spend.
And then, that's my thing, is I don't want us to wait till we have, like we did before, and it's gonna cost 4 or 5 times more than what it would cost if everybody somehow found a way
And
to
that's
do
why
it.
I'm trying to at least spell out what could be a viable option to get us from point A to point B.
Well, we discussed that option.
No, we didn't discuss that one.
Well, some options.
It was basically just doing half of the pods inside the big building.
We only
is all we
saved
discussed.
$300,000 by not finishing the adjacent 2 pods, which if we were going to do that, there's not enough cost savings, you might as well finish them out. But, I just think with the numbers I see, I think that we ought to look at that more
And then
closely. We need to do something.
Theoretically, what could happen if it doesn't have to be all or nothing, if we could go in with the 2 pods, or study it, see about 1 pod, but then still go forward with a SPLOST. At the point in time when we need more room, the money would be in there for SPLOST revenues, and you wouldn't have to get it bonded or anything.
We talked about, using the county to, get our land and stuff set to begin that process.
Right.
To have the idea and to have the plan in place and to move forward a step at a time. And that's what we said we were going to do, and then we got off track and we got concerned about other things, and I understand.
But I think
what
that
those
was
are.
a giant
You
step, though,
didn't have
is
enough,
what it
we
boiled down to.
didn't know what the future was gonna hold, and we didn't wanna start something that we
Well,
possibly
all
could
of
not
the options
finish.
that we put on the table became not financially viable, given the circumstances and the situations.
But,
We could, if we could study getting our county forces to do 2 pods, or start out and see, like,
I don't wanna build them in jail, because that don't work.
sorry.
The county doesn't need to build them in jail.
We're talking about leveling the ground.
Well,
Yeah, I'm talking about just do the prep.
What'd you say, Steve?
I don't wanna build them in jail.
No, I think it's basically, we come up with maybe about $1.5 million.
Doing the prep work, and like we talked about for 2 pods, and get an estimate, it is close to half the price. I think that could be done, and then go ahead and put for future building
Where you could be at
on
home.
the SPLOST. And then if it lasts 10 years, that'd be great, but whenever we do, we'll have the SPLOST money in there for additional.
I just believe that if we got our heads together and we work together towards the goal, that it could be done. But if we, go in different directions and this, that, and the other, it's not gonna work. We gotta work together. We gotta have a plan. And
Well, I put a compromise plan on the table.
Yeah.
Might not be the best plan, but it's a viable plan.
I understand. I've been around it. In Orlando, we had another one that's called the Butler Building, housed over 200 inmates. And it was dangerous, but we used it for a while until we get our other buildings done, and then we emptied it out. There's sacrifices you have to make, but you got to start.
We could bring Joe Arpaio in and have him kind of help us set up a.
Costing $3 million a year in attorney fees just to get him.
Well, basically, I think we all designed to reach our government. And it's just a matter of us putting it together so we can do it in a more efficient manner and making sure we're all proud of it when it's completed. And I'm personally in favor of us to go ahead and spending the money that we have from that first splash towards that objective. And if I understand it correctly, 2016, which is not long away, if the voters approve a piece of the pie of the splash, I think we could possibility to keep it going, so to speak.
Yeah. You got one of the best guys sitting right over there that's just waiting for direction. I believe John knows exactly what needs to be done.
Well, I
Sure
got a lot
does.
of confidence in our manager, and he's certainly doing a good job in the direction he's going. So let's keep striving to get it done. But I go on record personally, I don't think a fourth of the people, 40% of the people shouldn't have to pay the cost of the jail. I think it should be on the splash, and we've accumulated some funds from the past splash, and it's calculating how many people outside the county would be dropping pennies into that splash, and I think we can get it done. I like that proposal you just mentioned to us, is that we've looked at building a portion of it. And what other discussion we need to have about the jail before we dismiss tonight?
I just think if we do, basically looking at about 1.4, 1.5 million, it's going to be doable with what Jeff just said.
Yeah, and our
Because we're not
original-
gonna pay no more than $2,500 a month in payment for what we need to come up with it.
Well, our original estimate was no more than 1.5, and we were ready and on board at the time. But
And if this right here gets us half of what we need,
Well, also in his cost, they had grading and a lot of other incidental items that we can do. And by reducing the size and scope, there was a large contingency set up in the estimate, which would at least be reduced theoretically in half, which is going to put that within definite striking range of being a viable alternative. And then we can look at the fact of the savings of the housing out and the other aspects that you.
We're doing $13,000, $14,000 a month in housing out right now.
yeah, but over the last 8 years, you've averaged $1,750.
But we can't look at that.
I know, but what you have to look at is an average, and all I'm saying is if we do this in the
Well,
future,
we're
we'll
looking at it
have
as
it.
far as moving forward, that being a savings, looking at
Exactly.
putting
If
all
you
the
take that
finances
money,
together.
and look at what you can save,
we can get some numbers.
That's right,
together.
and that's what I'm saying, we can
Cut
make
costs.
that with a note payment.
cut that cost.
I think if we could get some numbers together and see what we can build for, best I get, if we had to borrow $500,000 and what we've got, so you're looking at $1.4 million to see what we can build for that and looking in the future and adding on to that. I think that would be, the best for everybody, including our taxpayers.
Can I ask Stevie,
How long would it take them to build it?
I'll take them.
18 months?
Really?
But the ground's the first thing you gotta do.
And folks, one thing that we saw when we first started talking about it is a building permit
Yes,
for this thing, and the price was unreal.
Was it 10, 12,000?
It was, I can't
16.
remember
It was 10 or 12 or 16,000.
for a building permit.
in Franklin.
The counties, I said, there's no way.
I think we can get, I think we do better.
Know somebody,
Yeah.
Well, would a motion be in order Monday night, or consensus or concurrence from the board to direct our county manager to move forward in that direction? But I would, also ask for basically if the sheriff's department would be open and receptive and entertain that scenario.
We need a room, that's what we gotta have, so I mean.
I mean, we can't predict the future, but we can tell you that the forecast is, there's a lot more people coming. It just
This
seems like
might
we're.
bridge the gap.
Well, if we can go $1.4 million, I would be ready, because I mean, the $500,000 loan shouldn't be a problem, should it?
Well, there's actually this same scenario. We have some current CDs that are drawing less than 1% interest. We could actually borrow from money from ourselves, establish a line item, and pay that back, and that would save the differential
We
in
had
the
brought that up
insurance.
before, but I think some of them wasn't willing to do that.
Well, and
Well, I don't think the way it was brought up before was you was wanting to use the money, because if you come in here and if you're getting a half point on a CD and they're gonna loan you money back at 1.5 points, then basically all you're doing is paying yourself.
Well, I have a question to ask, Mr. Phillips, you know, could you have the figures together so we can make a good decision? And that's a short notice for you.
Well, that is short notice, Mr. Chairman,
We're
and,
using it for a month to say.
well, I think one of the keys is going to be what we can do as far as construction cost, and I don't think that we would have those numbers by Monday, because I think it's all gonna hinge on, can we do 2 pods for that amount of money? I think what we can do is start to look at some of the things that we do know, but I feel like right now we're really gonna need some input from the architect as to is this doable as far as 2 pods or 1 pod? What could we do for that, for the amount of money that we're looking at? And I don't know that we could have that by Monday.
That's my thinking, just don't just throw something together and try to approve it.
Step at a time is what we decided.
Well, there is one aspect, we're not gonna know until we put something out for bids. We could get the architectural plan is almost sufficient.
Right.
To basically be cut. We could put out to bids, and if the bids are not satisfactory, then we look at other options. But that at least puts us in the right direction. It
And
allows.
I was going to say that may be another option that we want to explore is to actually get a
Design build.
hard number, right, and a design build or a contractor at risk to say, you know, here's what we could do as far as moving forward.
Right.
And
Agree
then,
with that scenario.
then
That
we have much firmer
Put you in the
numbers
know.
to take a look at.
But could we use our county forces to get the pad and everything, so we
We
can
can draft
put
a
more
contract any
in
way
the
that
jail?
we, absolutely.
That's right.
If we use our, for the groundwork, then that means we can put more into the jail.
And where we stand right now is we have an architectural plan. We do not have an actual site plan as far as the grading utilities. With the path we're on, we could do that in-house if we desire, as far as doing that plan, or as Commissioner Jakes said, we could word those bids any way we want as far as the design build, if we wanted to include that, and then we could do that work with our forces. There are a lot of options available to us.
Well, we could do that Monday though, put that in the form of a motion with that, couldn't we?
Sure.
A design build gets us moving with this project much quicker than any other scenario. Gets the sheriff
Right.
in and expanded and enhanced in a new jail a lot quicker than any other scenario.
Right.
And buys us time for the future.
Let me ask you, Steve, can some of that money, as you know, you said was with federal, is any some of that money that's federal could come back and come in toward
Can't right
that?
now, 'cause I can't get it. I got about $200,000 I can't get from them. I made all kind of calls, waiting on that seizure.
But I mean, whenever it does come, can that money come back toward, when it does come?
We'll see.
That'd be
Because
great.
that has a lot to do with the cars, you know, that's why I had to take it from the cars and do my stuff there, because of, I tried, you know, Jeff asked me to look at this other car deal with Green
Bring forward.
Forward. I talked to Hall County and they basically recommend not to. He said for the jail car or a courthouse car, yes. But the sheriff said he just didn't like it.
I spoke with 2 officers within the last month, and they said they had no problems with them whatsoever.
I use sheriff now, he talked to me about it.
Jackson,
The couch.
I think Jackson County.
White County uses them, Hall County, and they're And, you know, like I said, I understand that that would be something for serving warrants, transport of prisoners, just an option to save money.
Okay, appreciate the discussion tonight, and we'll put together something to move in the right direction, keep the direction going for Monday night, and then I don't think we can have efficient information to make a final vote to move forward. We have to just get something. That's the rest. Any other discussion? We stand adjourned.